Okay, small boxes with hidden magnets. You've seen some of this as it goes, and I think I've kind of brought it all together. I started out making these small flat pillboxes with visible magnets, and I do that because I need to carry one, so I want to have a good one. And at the end of the show, I'll show you the one I do carry. This is my best attempt at, if the magnets are going to show, let's make a feature out of them. And these holes are turned white by using a paste made with baking soda and super glue. And it's kind of pearly in its effect. It's good. I'll interject here that I worked for a lot of years with magnets oriented axially, so they pulled the box lid down onto the base. That's a pretty good strategy. It's what everybody thinks of. You're using the sucking force and not the reorientation force. It's difficult to hide the magnets. It's usually clunky to do that, and it makes boxes of quite clunky proportions. I wanted a more elegant proportion, and I find that the radially oriented magnets, as shown on the left in this diagram, gives me that. And most of this video, that's what this video is about. I got challenged to hide the magnets. So one way of hiding the magnets is with a slip ring on the outside. So the magnets are inside the box lid, and the slip ring fits on the outside and covers them. But you get a glue line. But these are a couple of examples of how that works, and that's a pretty good technique, and I'm going to detail that technique in a minute. Another way of doing it is put the magnets in the slip ring, and that goes inside the box lid. But then you got a very fragile ring, and it's very hard to bore it accurately without breaking the ring, and it's not a good strategy. And I haven't got a successful box there, or I would have showed it. And then you can have a flange or no flange. This has no flange, so it has the drum top. The ring covers, slides down, covers the magnets. You get a glue line visible on the inside, but and then you make the top into a drum and hide the glue line in the drum, and it works pretty well. I like that solution, and I like this box. The other way is to make a flange on the box lid and use the same slip ring, but now the foot glue line that showed up there is hidden in another bead at the foot of the foot of the inside of the box lid. So that was a pretty good strategy. This particular box is not one I like very much. It's got too many beads, but the strategy is not bad. In fact, it's good. The other way is to put the flange on the box ring itself and then stop the ring against that. You still get the visible glue line on the inside of the bottom of the lid, but you get an unbroken top surface. You don't have to go to a drum surface. So that's a pretty good strategy. Okay, fitting the rings. Now, if you're going to fit the ring on the outside of the box, then you make the ring first and turn the box to fit it, as you can see on the left. So you turn the ring, hollow it out just like it was a box, part it off. Uh, while it's still attached to the block, you get to make sure that it's got parallel sides. No angle works except straight dead parallel. And then you can fit that to what will become the box lid, just simply pairing the box lid. So you make the innie first, because that's the hardest to get straight, and then you can make the outer to fit it. The other way around, if you're going to do the flange solution, you do it the other way around. You hollow out the lid, and then you make the flange to fit, and then part it off. And that's what's the drawing on the right. We're going to see both of these in the slideshow, I think. So starting out to make a small bill box, I got a canary wood blank 3x3 by about 3 1/4. That'll end up with a 7/8 or 3/4 inch thick box. Probably the canary wood blank could be just a 3x3x3 cube. Here's the tool tray that I'm using. A lot of small scrapers, a lot of little thin rulers, vernier caliper. Okay, turn it around, mark a witness triangle and that I align up with a notch in the number 1 jaw so I can always get the blocks back on in the way I made them. Both ends have a tenon, part off the lid piece. Then you make you hollow out the ring next, right in the block that's in the chuck. And you make it just like you were making a box lid. I tried making it as a ring and leaving a plug inside, and you can do that, but that's very difficult to dimension correct. It's very difficult to get that parallel. This method, you can get it parallel. You hollow it out like it was a box piece, as you can see on the left, and on the right is testing the parallelism. You stick a ruler in there tight against the side of the box wall and sight that against the lathe ways, and it's either parallel or it's not. You can get very, very accurate with that technique. And then you can easily pair what will become the box inside of the box lid and the top of the box lid to slip inside the ring you just made. On the left, you can see the fundamental technique for getting a good fit. You take it down close enough, and then you make a taper and hold the piece you're trying to fit to it up to the taper, not with the lathe on, just hold it up and twist it a bit, and you'll see a scuff exactly where it fits perfect, and you compare it to that. So here's the three elements of a pillbox and where they were in the blank. There's the lid and the ring and the box base going right to left. This box base has a plug on it. This particular ring was parted off rather than taken off as a box, as I just described. Here's the boring setup I'm using to bore for the magnets. On the right here, there is a horse head shaped sort of flat plate. That allows me to square the tool rest to the front edge of that and use the tailstock ram to advance that toward the headstock. And then the drill is an old gun drill, electric gun drill in a block mounted on a tool rest, in the tool rest post, and the bar on the top of that is simply used to sight against the latheways, again to get it parallel. So with all this together, I can get a truly radial angle a radial shot dead on center. And all of these are with 3/16 inch magnets. So this is a pain in the butt to put on and take off the lathe. So I usually make several boxes and then bore them all at once. And you always bore the outside, a bigger ring first, so you can trace the holes onto the inside ring as a check against what your measurements say it ought to be. A final problem is setting the hole depth in the box base, and there is a stop on the drill press apparatus, on the drill apparatus that you can see over on the left. So I usually get the drill bit, I can sight it against the end of the wood and then maneuver it to the right place. And by doing that way, as you can see on the right, I can get a stopped hole in the box base. So the magnets show on the outside, they don't show inside where your cargo is. And you do have to verify the depth of that hole, which I do with a small vernier. But once you get one of them right, they'll all be right. What the problem is, you can't rebore them. You bore the hole, and the magnet will fit tight. You come back and fool around with it and try and bore it again or make it a little deeper. You can also make it bigger. The magnet will never fit tight. So installing the magnets on the left, I got a little 8 or so magnets, and I'm simply pressing them into the holes where they go. And as long as I don't rotate the stack, it'll all work out. And I can always check it, part A against part B, by checking how the magnets stick. I usually end up, as on the right, mounting the workpiece in the lathe chuck, and then using a bamboo dowel and a small hammer to tap them to where they need to go to get the depth just right, because I want them to be below the surface on both, wherever they appear below the surface, so that I can fill the hole up flush with the baking soda mixture. And you can't do it with a steel tool, of course, so the bamboo dowel is the key, and then sharpen them with a pencil sharpener, and away you go. Now, once the magnet is set in there in the right place, a drop of thin super glue anchors it, and then I fill the hole by using a plastic spatula to put baking soda in the hole, and then add a drop of super glue to that, and it turns into kind of a cement. It's quite remarkable. It makes a mess on the outside, but it's easy to turn that off. And then I have to glue the show ring onto the magnet ring. And in this case, the show ring is a 1/4 inch extra fatter than it ought to be, or longer than it ought to be. That was from, and I think it's on a flanged box. I think this was an experimental one. This was the photo I had, because when I'm in the middle of gluing, I am not remembering to take pictures, but I wanted you to see what a mess it is. And what I usually do is put a piece of paper over the latheways and let the glue fall where it may. So that's what I do. That's how I manage all that. This one is glued with super glue. I usually use epoxy and let it set overnight. That way, epoxy does some gap filling and it works very well. Okay, now here's the jar strategy. This is a small jar with visible magnets, which I made a lot of. The as in the boxes, if the magnets are appropriately offset, pulls the lid down with a sharp click, which is very pleasant. And I want to be able to pick that box up by its lid without the bottom falling off. That's the test I'm after. Here's two approaches using a flanged ring that fits inside the lid. So on the left, the spalted tamarind box, there's no visible magnet line there, but the one glue line is at the top of the bead, and the other glue line you can see in the drawing is the shoulder where the inside flange meets the lid. This is a really good strategy because you can those are two surfaces that it's really easy to get to match, just two flat joints, and then you can have a not so good fit between the rings on the vertical line because the epoxy will fill that in. So that's pretty successful technically, and it's pretty successful aesthetically, and it gives you a lot of scope for what you do with the lid. The box on the right has got an inlay lid, and the bottom drawing shows the deets for that. I always what I do lately is I take this block of wood and draw around it, and then I draw inside that rectangle what I'm going to do. So here's a maple cylinder that's turned with its tenons against the drawing I made before I started, and this is a box that we're going to see at least some of being made with the flanged inside ring and the lid and the bottom. So you round the blank tenon both ends and part off the lid piece. Hollow out the lid and make the side walls parallel and to the depth you want. And this is the one place you really need the drawing plus experience. There's an awful lot of, why is that way? And the thickness of the flange my error is usually getting it too thick, and then I got way too much wood to pare off. But anyway, that's part of what making a lot of them does for you. So then after hollowing out the lid, you turn the flanged magnet ring, make that fit inside the lid and part that off. So on the left, you can see me measuring the thickness of the flange, and on the right, I'm parting off the ring with the flange attached. Now I'm going to fit the flanged ring to the tenon on the box body, and the usual tactic, make a slope, hold it up to the slope, and see exactly where it fits on that slope, and that's your line. So here's the parts. Here's a box lid with the flanged inner piece that's going to hold the magnets, be the magnet ring, and the box body not yet shaped but hollowed out with its own tenon where the magnets are going to be. So gluing the two-part lid, I usually use epoxy, and I gotta put epoxy on all the surfaces after the magnets have been installed. It's just the usual procedure, and I clamp it and I leave it overnight, even though I'm using two-part epoxy. I find that's really the only way to do it. And then cleaning up the glued lid, there's always, you make it tight because you're going to remove wood later, getting the glue residues off. And I use a little tool like this. It's a Boxmaster tool with a double bevel scraper, or what do you call it, negative rake scraper. And the angle between the long side and the short end must be less than 90 degrees. And with it that way, you can go straight in to make the box side, and you can clean up that corner without causing a spiral that dances across the inside of the lid. How am I doing? 10:15. You guys still with me?
We're here.
Okay. And I usually have shaped the box base at this point. I don't have any slides showing you this, but when I make the box base, I know where I'm going to go with it. So I make the shape, and I know how big it's going to be on the outside. So I go to a finished shape, and I usually sand it, and I often finish it right before it going any further. In this case, I didn't finish it first. So I've got the box lid glue up, the two-part lid with the flange and the lid over top of it in the chuck, and I'm just allowing the magnets to hold it in place, so I can mark where it actually fits. So that's the line I got to be shooting toward. I need the eye to visually find that place. And I can mark it here before I go any further with the lid. The problem is with this strategy, is you either have to have a good photo or a good note in the pad to know how much wood you have to remove from that lid, because you no longer can see what the thickness is of the magnet piece. But I pretty much standardized that at 3/16. So working backwards from that, I can usually tell where I am in the workpiece. So now I'm turning the outside of the lid with beads and fitting it to the box body, and I'm looking for what seems to be a continuous line between lid and body. And once I got all that right, and while it's still on the lathe, I'm going to sand it and then finish it with Osmo. And I'm doing this with the technique that we learned from Duxbury. I drill a hole in the Osmo can and then drip it out on my fingertip as I need it, and apply it where I need it, and turn the lathe up to about 2000 and hit it hard with a shop towel. Buffs it right in, and I can keep on working. So as I finish a surface, finishing a surface includes sanding it to 320 and putting a first coat of Osmo on it. I'll probably wipe on 2 more coats of Osmo before I consider the piece finished, but this is the base coat that gets it going. And what I like about it is I can just carry right on working. It's just like as good as lacquer. I don't need to wait for anything to dry. So here's my 25 boxes I've made so far in 2025. I've actually made more than that, but this is you want to investigate a subject, this is where you're going to get to, or this is at least where I got to. I've actually made more than these because I give them away, and I'll see that in a minute. I've given away about 10 so far this year, boxes and jars. Here's my 2 favorite pill boxes. One with the ring of magnets showing, 8 dummy rings and 4 real magnets. I like that as a decorative effect. My current experimentation is to make those dots colored and shimmery in different ways. And the other one, the canary wood one, simply hidden magnets. You don't see them on the inside. You only inside of the cargo area, and you don't see them on the outside of the lid. And you do have the glue line inside the lid, but hey, it doesn't matter. But I find both of these to be elegant and useful and nice. I'm quite happy with how this has worked out, and the investigation has gotten me to. I know how to make these. And then the same with small jars. These all use the flanged ring that fits inside the lid, except the mahogany one, which is a simple slip ring. The slip ring gives you the dome top. The flanged ring gives you the clean top, where it doesn't have to have the drum effect. And as you can see in the in the right-hand slide, there's no glue line in there. The glue line is hidden up in the seam at the top and in the bead. So I think that's a pretty good strategy. This is where they go. Barbara chose a mahogany one with spalted tamarind, and I enjoy the delight people get when they get one of these things, and I usually remember to get a good photo. This is my own pillbox, the one I've been carrying for the last. I noticed in my slide when I found the slide of this that this was made somehow in early 23. So every couple of years I upgrade, but I've still been happy with this one for quite a while. It's face grained and not end grained. It's Cocobolo. There's 2 compartments inside, which matters. The magnets are visible. I'm good with that. The fact that it's face grained, I've noticed all of the boxes that are really thin tend to be face grained. When the boxes are end grained, they just have to be thicker, or the lid and the base don't have enough integrity. So those are some of the small bits of making these things. And I think that's the last slide. Yeah, that's my adventure. Comments and questions?
Yeah, I have a comment. That's really an amazing study you've done on that. And I think Mike Peace already said it. I think we need an American Woodturner article on it. So do your best.
Well, you just got the article. I'm probably never going to write it, but I probably will post it as a slideshow.
Hey, John, let me ask a question. You made some beautiful boxes, and you want to come and risk burning the top of some of them with the laser?
Bottoms. Yeah, well, I've got a dummy piece or 2 to set up. I want to, instead of burning my initials sloppily with a pen the way I do now, I like the experiment we did with the laser, so I'd like to try that.
Oh, I'm all for it. I'm just scared to death that I'm going to mess it up somehow.
Yeah, you know, as you see, I can always make another box.
Yeah, just another box. Just another how many days?
Well, no, I make a box in a work session basically. And so each day I can make one or two boxes. Each day I usually will be working on 3 boxes, but
So
I'm really making
so
them at the pace of one in about 3 hours. Well, let's get
And I
it.
have a question for you, John. Have you found that the magnets are going up in price?
No, they all are in the 20 cents each, 30 cents each sort of range. And I buy them, a box uses 8 magnets, right? So I buy 3, 4 dozen at a time, sometimes 100 at a time. You get a price break at 100, but the only size I'd ever buy 100 of would be 3/16 by 3/16, or 3/16 by an eighth. Those are the two sizes I use the most. And for blind holes, I use a metalworking bit, and if I'm boring through, I use a brad point bit.
Do you get them off of Amazon, or do you have a special place to buy them?
I buy magnets from K&J Magnetics, and they're easy to find. KJ Magnetics. They're in Pennsylvania. They mail them. I place an order. They arrive in the mail 2 days later, and perfect.
I got a quick question on the boxes.
Yeah.
The magnets, when you offset them a little bit so the lid draws closed,
Yes.
right? Okay, now what if you twist the lid so the magnets don't align? Will it not clasp? You know what I mean?
They kind of spin closed. They spin closed with a snap. So I've opened the box, right? It spins to it with a clack to where it lives. There's 4 pairs of magnets.
Right.
So every quarter turn they fit, and by being offset vertically in this direction, they want to line up. A stack of magnets wants to line up in a clean stack, so it wants to pull the lid down. So if they're not aligned, and it's loose enough, so it'll spin to where it wants to go.
Okay, it will spin. I was wondering if it.
And it's going to spin because by the time you clean the glue off there, it's going to, no matter how tight you make it, you got to make it fit to be able to align them in the first place. You can't have it loose. You can't just do it by measurement. You'll get it wrong. So by the time you glue them in and clean off the glue, there's going to be enough looseness in there. And there needs to be more than a 32nd, less than a 16th of looseness. And if the box, and these are end grain, so I get minimal distinction. Now the ones that are face grain, this one has had a lot of movement, and I've carried it in my pocket 2 years now. And it fits the way it's tight enough so it won't fit really, and I can't do anything about that. But it'll line up in the right direction. So part of it is how much looseness do you need, and it's more than you think.
Okay, I was wondering about if you didn't have enough magnet, like the 4, and you clasped it off of the 90 degrees, would it just fall back off? So then I thought, well, if you put more magnets, would you start getting opposition or resistance from one magnet to the other, and then it wouldn't clasp?
You can't.
You know what I mean?
You'd have to put them awfully close together to get that.
Okay.
Earlier in other years, when I had magnets oriented the other way, I did a lot of experiments with having them. They would only hold together when the grain was lined up, and any other orientation they would throw the lid off. And you can make it do that, and you can have kind of fun with that. But people don't understand it. It bollockses them. Nobody enjoys it, except the maker. So.
Gotcha.
But you can do a bunch of trickery like that once you get deep into this.
Yeah, okay.
So, John, if you would put your box together with, I think Steve was talking about 90 degrees magnet to magnet, they would not find each other and line your box up unless you spin it physically.
It doesn't take a hell of a lot of spin. They want
But,
to.
I mean, you couldn't just drop it on and it'll go.
Yeah, you can. You pretty much, you can. It depends on, I don't have one up here, but one with 6 sets of magnets, it'll do that exactly.
Yeah. Okay, that's what my question was.
Yeah.
how many magnets do you need to move? So any way you put it on, it'll automatically turn without you turning it.
6 pairs,
Okay.
and a loose enough fit. And
Yep.
that will give you a box that is tight enough that you don't worry about it coming open in luggage. You can just chuck it in your suitcase. It's going to stay shut.
Gotcha. That's what I was. That's exactly what I was wondering about, Jim. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Four is good in the pocket and purse. In luggage, maybe it'll get pried open.
Have you thought about reversing 2 of the magnet sets so that you only get one position where it actually clicks together?
Yeah, it doesn't do you any good. It doesn't spin it.
I know. I was just making that way the grain shows up the same way every time. I was thinking from the aesthetics of the finished box. So when you spin it, when you put it together, what you're talking about, you could put it in any one of 4 positions,
Right.
base or whatever. And I just have this thing about my grain lining up all the time, I guess. And I said, so you have to be conscious about that one, the way you've done it.
Oh yeah, you have to. That's why you have to index the pieces with triangles and trace one set of holes through another and know exactly where. Yeah, there's nothing random about where the magnets go. That's for sure. And the grain is lined up all the time. I'm forever working with the alignment, and from the way the pieces are parted off the block affects that too. And yeah.
John, years ago when I first became acquainted with boxes, there was a turner, and I can't think of his name now, he was known for air fit boxes or whatever you call.
Raffin makes those. You can do that.
That wasn't Raffin,
Angelo
but
does
it was
that.
another guy.
Angelo does that. A lot of guys do that. That's another. It's not that easy to do either. You should try it.
No. But I just wondered how that interfaces with the magnet thing. I guess maybe yours, if they didn't have the magnets to pull in, might be airtight or whatever you call it.
They are. But by the time you put in the glue and clean all that off, you inevitably lose some wood, and you want some looseness. Magnet boxes do not want to be that tight. Any wood movement in there.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.